Hey everyone, this is Steve Weintraub with Collider, and I am here at our studio at the Cinema Center at MARBL with Richard Linklater for Hitman. How are you doing, sir?
Hey, doing well, man. Good to see you.
So I guess I have to start with the first thing, which is what is it like, because you've made a number of movies, some get better reviews than others. What is it like for this one where there's just universal acclaim?
Well, in the big scope of things, it's better to be loved than not loved. But probably it's more gratifying in the moment. But long term, who knows? But, you know, in the moment, it's always
it is better. Actually, you're one of these people, though, that has done so many movies over so many years, and some are now considered classics. Like, for example, Dazed and Confused, one of my all-time favorite films.
Thanks.
And, it's been 30 years now, but it's one of those films that's really stood the test of time. When did you realize, oh, wait a minute, this is really resonating with people and might be something special?
Well, I felt that the first time audiences were seeing it, but you don't really know. About a year later, it was still playing. Back then, they still had midnight screenings, remember? And it had played a full year at certain theaters, a little bit of the theatrical run for however many weeks, and then it kicked to midnight. And it played for a year as a midnighter. And, they're talking about, people come in and you can smell the reefer smoke in the theater. It's like a party film. I was like, that's interesting, so I don't know. You hear things, but you've moved on to your next film by then. So it's, whatever. Well,
one of the things we've talked about this, I think for Apollo 10.5, but one of the things that you are a master of, one of the many things, is that you have this insane ability to remember things and apply those memories into your work. And and for people that don't realize, can you talk a little bit about that? Because with Dazed, with so many of your films, it's like you've been transported back in time to that exact moment, and little random things that most people don't remember are included.
Well, yeah, I guess everyone's mind works differently. I guess I always had this kind of recall memory of little details. It's what to do with those exacting memories that clutter up your consciousness, So I think a lot of novelists have that, where they're describing the day in every detail. Some people, you kind of have that recall. So I think I have that, and I just use it in certain ways. Not on every film, but, certain films that are kind of in that vein of personal and autobiographical. And oftentimes I really have tried to say, okay, I'm recreating a moment in time or a place in time. And it's always something fun to strive for. But, I'm doing that sometimes not on a physical level, like maybe not the time period and thing, but on a psychological level, like something that happened to me transported to another place in time. So it's always personal,
So before we jump into Hitman, which I have so many questions about, when you see someone like me wearing this t-shirt, which is a complete bootleg, do you get upset, or are you like, oh, that's actually pretty cool?
I have to go, that's actually pretty cool. Yeah, I make t-shirts, or I used to make a lot of them. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Someone, it's easier now. You just get a little frame grab and do a thing. But, oh, that's cool. Of course it is. It's been a long time since I was in Vienna shooting that movie. Yeah. Coming up on 30 years.
100%. Yeah. And do you enjoy when people ask you, will there be more? Or do you sort of like I'd rather, you know what I mean?
Yeah. That question begs itself when you do a series, it's
Sure.
Of course, we never got asked that after the first film. No one ever asked, are you going to do another? No one. But after we did 2, then that question, then do 3. Yeah, that question. But we totally missed our 9-year window. So I don't know, no plans currently, but hopefully it's a long life.
Yeah, I could ask a million questions, but let's jump into why I get to talk to you. So sure. Hitman's fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
And so there's so much to talk about, but let's get into the fact that you worked with Glenn when he was like 14 or something.
15, 16, he was in high school.
Yeah, and then it's like, you never know what's going to happen. And then all of a sudden, Glenn, anyway, talk a little bit about how you made this with Glenn and the origins of the story.
Kind of the most, I think anyone will tell you, the most rewarding kind of special thing about doing what we do and being able to do this over years is the long-term relationships, to just see people grow up and see people change, and, people you work with or know. And it's been fun to see Glenn. He's significantly younger than me, but I worked with him when he was a teenager on Fast Food Nation, just a small part, but I cast him amongst a lot of teenagers. Like, that guy's interesting, but he's 16 or whatever. And then, what felt like not many years later for me, but for him, or a lot of years later, let's say 16 to 23 or 4 or whatever, 5, he comes in on Everybody Wants Some. And I was like, oh, wow, that guy, he grew up. He became Glen Powell. The Glen Powell we know today developed in there. And sure enough, it wasn't like he had some yellow brick road. He was like, he really worked hard. He struggled in LA. He did all the things you have to do to persist in an acting career. And he did all that. And he was just fully formed. And we had so much fun on Everybody Wants Some. And then he came in and did a one-day cameo for me on Apollo 10.5. And that was fun. But, over the pandemic, he called me up with this article he had read. And I was like, yeah, I read that a long time ago. I do know that story from Texas Monthly. And then we just started collaborating on it. We just started having, Glenn's like the greatest guy. He's like ideal collaborator, like super smart, super funny. All we do is laugh and make each other's laugh and kind of keep pushing each other too. So I think this thing reflects both of our greatest hits, maybe, to kind of put our sensibilities together and make this work. And I like collaborating with the actors too. Like, that's why I work with Ethan. Like, he's a future actor and I'm a future director. But at this moment, we're screenwriters. We're conjuring this movie together. And I've done that with other actors. Like I was saying, Ethan and Julie, for instance, and Glenn, such a great creative partner, just really fun.
Was this a tough project? Because I believe the film is for sale here.
Yeah, we did this on spec. We didn't have a corporate parent. We didn't, no one was financing us. We did this pretty independently. So, because it's kind of a strange film on paper. It's a hybrid. Well, what is this? Could it be more? Like, people didn't totally get it. So we did it. We got it done old school. And we're looking for a distributor. So
I am very confident that this will be sold. This is not.
I think, it's just hopefully to the right.
Well, yeah, but it's a question of like, are you guys looking for a big theatrical push? Are you looking for just streaming? Those kind of questions become where it could end up.
Yeah, I don't know. It's good to have options, and I don't know. We'll just see what comes at us. I don't think I've been in this position before, or not in the modern era where I've had to make certain decisions. So we're at a unique time, I guess. But let's hope we have options. That's what you want in this world. So whatever's best for the movie,
Yeah, like I said, though, I think the fact that it got such good reviews and everyone is so positive makes it, it's, I would like to, anyway, moving past that. So with making it indie like this, did you guys, how long did you have to shoot it?
I'm used to that. Not as long as you would like. Right. You don't have the schedule or the budget, but you make it work. You just grind. We never were not working on this. We'd work all weekend. We'd finish shooting in the day. We'd work that night on this. There was so many nuances we were trying to get perfect. And so what you don't have in money and schedule, you make up in prep. So long rehearsal, all that, you plan it out, rehearse on location. So you got to show up and go. Some of these scenes people are kind of so excited about, the scene where he goes back and they have that kind of fake fight or whatever. I mean, we shot that in, like half a day. Some films would take a week maybe to shoot that, or at least several days. But we were ready. Those actors were ready.
Yeah. Also, when you know what you're looking for and what you're gonna, what you're gonna do.
Yeah. I have it all planned out. To me, the most relaxing place in the world is on my own movie set. Some people think, oh, that's crazy. Like, isn't it volatile? It's like, no, because it's all planned. I'm just having fun doing what we've, it's like all the prep has been done. We're just experiencing it now. It's like, a player, you like the game because you've worked really hard in the off season. You know what I mean?
100%.
Like, the game is where it happens. So I can feel like the set, I'm not creating it there. I'm experiencing it there.
So Glenn has a lot of outfit changes. He also has sometimes tattoos.
Oh, yeah.
So talk a little bit about what was your favorite outfit, if you will, and did Glenn have a different favorite?
Oh, my God. This movie was so fun to make because, we had worked on these looks. And, I'd seen tests and we had all these pictures, and Glenn really went to town on the different characters, and we would talk about each one. We dropped a few, and, these series of would-be hitmen. But the presentation was kind of the same. Like we would be preparing the set, but Glenn has to go to makeup. So he would get out of the van or whatever and be this guy. And the whole crew, everybody standing around would just go. But the best is the very odd orange-haired guy with freckles, and he's the last one. We saved kind of the best for last because he's just so weird. When he stepped, that was the last day of shooting too. We kind of snuck that one in. When Glenn got out of the van, I'll never forget the whole crew. We just all went, what the fuck has happened? What has descended on our movie set? Who is this creature from another planet? It was so funny. It was just so funny.
So you know that I like talking about the editing process because it's where it all comes together. How did this one get shaped in ways you didn't expect? Because it's also balancing like different tones.
Yeah, this one was kind of different for me. If anyone wants to like look too close, it's a little more plotty. There's twists and turns, and I felt like I'm in a genre here. I'm trying to deliver in the film noir genre and the screwball comedy. This is very plotty, and it turns, and you know, the audience has to be. We're manipulating the audience. They have to be oriented in a certain way, and so it's not my usual flow. But I mean, that was the fun challenge, and so I probably move things around more in editing now than I would on most movies. Usually the script and our final shooting script is kind of the movie. It lays out largely like this. This we were able to move some things around, like put up front something that was later and kind of shape something, drop some things all together. Yeah, so it was more shape. Sandra and I, it was a bigger post-production. Even watching it with an audience and kind of shaping it, when you're trying to make a crowd-pleasing film that hits all these notes, you want to make sure it's landing properly. So it was like, okay, well, they want to know more about Glenn. You could sense when an audience went, they need a little more. They have questions at the end. We're going to answer those questions. We were crafting this thing to work in the way we wanted it to. So, you just got to, your collaborators become, everybody who's watched it and what people are thinking about it and what you're intuiting, hearing what people are saying or how they're reacting to it. So, but we were always good. It just, brought it to the finish line,
Is there anything that you cut out of this that you had shot that you're like, this just doesn't work?
Not really. I had kind of a montage in there earlier, kind of establishing the tone, the place of New Orleans. And then we thought, no one needs to, you don't have to describe New Orleans. Everybody knows New Orleans. We don't have to. We were just kind of describing how it fits the theme of the movie. It's like, we don't have to do that. Like, we don't need that. The film doesn't need that. Let's just get right into it.
So you're basing this on a real person, Gary Johnson.
Yeah.
But you're also making a movie. So talk a little bit about balancing where you felt like you could have fun and where you wanted to actually like be real with Gary.
Yeah, well, the film's pretty demarcated. It's kind of like, everything up until the time where she gets back in touch with him. Like he meets her.
Well, I don't want to do spoilers, by the way. So I want to avoid certain things.
Yeah. I don't know if it's a spoiler, but there's a moment where the film, we take off once the couple kind of get going. That's where I think the genre really kicks in.
Sure.
Of the kind of crime noir thing, and the screwball comedy centers around that relationship. And a lot of that is kind of a flight of fancy we took. But Gary Johnson was a real guy. I knew him. Fascinating guy. He did teach at a school. He taught psychology. Just a really thoughtful guy. We give him a little shout out, dedication at the end. But he was this kind of introverted, interesting guy who took on these disguises, not to the extent we do in the movie. He said, we're trying to make a movie. And we were always keeping it, because we just saw it as funny. It was just a darkly funny movie. I mean, people who want to kill people, that doesn't sound very funny. But since they're not actually killing people, it seemed like if they were really killing people, that's not so funny to me. But the fact that they're bumbling toward it in a kind of goofy, uninformed way, that I thought, well, that's just funny. I just always saw it as darkly comedic. So,
what's also interesting, because I think Gary was involved in like 70 or a ton of things. And so it just makes you realize a lot of people want people dead.
It's a fascinating subject, isn't it? And the fact that we live in a society where people think you can have someone killed. I mean, that's a myth.
Do you really think it's a myth, though?
It's absolutely a myth. I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but it happens to, the lovers, the woman talks the young guy into killing her husband, that's a thing.
Got it.
Stuff like that happens, or a gang. There are mob targeted killings. Of course, there's drug cartel killings, but those are, I call, affiliated killings. You have a relation with the killer and the person doing it. There's some relationship there. What the myth is that there's this retail. I call it in the movie, we sort of deconstruct the Hitman movie in a short amount. It's pretty fun. But I mean, I've been studying this for over 20 years. I've really kept because when I read the article and I talked to Skip, I said, yeah, I've kind of heard that Hitman. He goes, yeah, there's no record on public of there ever being. Well, it's so fascinating. So for 20 years, I've been really watching this. And if you think about it, the movie, they're entrapping the person who wants a person killed, and it's fairly easy. Someone shoots their mouth off and they want someone killed. Thank God. Homicide divisions are interested in that, and they set you, you go think you're talking to a hitman. And, I had surveillance tapes of all that, all the research from Gary. It was fascinating to listen in on these conversations. So banal. So like they're buying just a retail product. That's what's so bizarrely funny about it. But if you think about it, it would be so easy to flip that. Sure. The homicide division would say, okay, I'm looking to kill someone. I'm just throwing it out there for a hitman. Oh, come in and let's talk. Let's negotiate the hit. Here's the guy to kill. And as soon as you hand the money, you'd arrest them. It'd be so easy to catch them. Think of it logically. It'd be so easy. And have you ever heard in a news thing, well, this guy was found shot in the forehead today with a long-powered rifle. We assume it's a hitman. You've never heard that. You've never heard a hitman arrested, and you've never heard.
Well, that's because they're very good at their jobs. I'm joking.
They're so good at their jobs. Right. Yeah. So I don't know, but I don't expect this film to bust the myth. I mean, we love it too much. I was just at the Venice Film Festival. There were like 3 Hitman movies there. I'm in a little category. We're kind of deconstructing the Hitman myth, but we're all pretty bought into it. It's I think films invented the hitman. It's a great character. It's a great idea. But the more interesting area for me has developed over the years. Like, well, why are we invested in the hitman? Is it because we like the idea that, if someone screwed me over, I don't want to kill anyone. I'm a pacifist, but you screwed me over enough. I might just reach into my savings account and have you killed. You're only alive because I'm deciding not to do that. Is it an empowering thing? I don't know. I'm just spitballing. No, why are we invested in this notion? I mean, the idea, it's kind of like snuff films or something. You hear, those are fake anyway. They never really existed. It's like, really? But it's just a compelling thing we kind of like. We like fun, crazy ideas, but like most conspiracy theories, there's just no basis to them. But we like it. They're imaginative.
Are you telling me that Elvis is not still alive?
He lived a long time, but then he died of natural causes because he's an old guy and he was a little overweight. He didn't have the best diet. So he died. It's pretty well established. He died in the early 2000s.
Right, of course.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The last 20 years, he was just a little quiet. No, but it is like, for me at least, like I love watching films that take place in like apocalyptic futures or like radically different things just to imagine what that might be like. We're all imaginative. We like this realm of what if and all that. So I don't know. We like something that includes us. That's why conspiracies thrive. They include you. It's just such a bummer to get knowledge from other people that you have to deal with. It's just don't tell me that. I don't want to believe that. Global warming. Just let me tell you what I think. I want to switch and when you went to Venice with the film and here at TIFF, what is it like watching the film with an audience? And are they laughing at places that you did not expect? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, you never know when you make a comedy. Like, you hope it permeates. You hope they get all your jokes. And it's really satisfying when you hear those chuckles and you hear the big laughs at like, oh, okay, wow, they're taking the ride with us. So that's fun.
I want to make sure I pronounce her name right. Adria?
Adria.
Yeah. So,
just no you, Adria. A-D. Adria.
Adria and
Adria
Glen
Arjona. Yeah.
are fantastic together.
Yeah.
Their chemistry is like crackling. So when did you realize that they were so good together? And, you know, did you guys do auditions together?
A chemistry read?
Yeah.
All I needed, I had met Adria, and I just on Zoom, you know, we had talked, and I was like, oh my God. I called up Glenn and said, I think that this is Madison. She's so vivacious, so funny and smart and sexy. You know, like, I think this is, I mean, I want you to meet her. And they live kind of not far from each other, it turns out. And so they were going to have, like, say, they were going to meet at 3:00. And then it was like 4:30 and I hadn't heard back. I thought I'd hear from Glenn. And then it's like 6:30 at night. I said, oh man, and then finally about 8:30 at night, I got a call from Glenn saying, we were together 5 hours. We were just, coffee became drinks, and and I was like, okay, we got a movie. Cause I mean, I knew that, I just had to hear it from them.
Sure.
That they sort of clicked and knew what we were trying to do with this movie and decided to.
But the thing about it is you can meet and have drinks and get along great, but it doesn't mean on camera there's going to be that magic.
Oh, I knew I can put two things together. Knowing Glenn and then getting to know her, I was like, okay, this is going to work. And then, but just when you start rehearsing, you always have the front row seat, and we work on scenes. I'm like, oh, I can't wait. I mean, it's a year plus away, but I can't wait for this to be in a movie.
So I like talking. One of the things, I've spoken to Roger Deakins a lot, and he just shoots with one camera. And then you have Ridley Scott, who will shoot with like 6 cameras or 8 cameras.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, through your career, how do you typically like to shoot a scene? And has it changed as you've progressed?
Not that much. I think we're all kind of stuck with our own methodologies. I like a second camera, especially on a indie lower budget. You can, if you're lit correctly, you know, you can get a close up and another angle sometimes at the same time. So I like 2 cameras when possible. But yeah, I think if you're doing a big action, I mean, Kurosawa would use, you know, 1 take, but, you know, 15 cameras of a raid or something. There's a time to have multiple cameras, but I'm usually not making a movie like that. So I'm a 1 to 2 camera guy.
It's so interesting to me because there is no right way to make a movie.
No.
And, you know, you look at like Fincher, and he's told me how he'll like shoot something 35 times, whatever the fucking number is, and he'll use part of take 2, part of take 17, part of take 31 to craft someone's performance. But then there's other people, 1 camera, and that's the whole thing.
Yeah, well, there's as many ways to make a movie as there are personalities and neurodivergencies of directors.
Right.
We're all on that spectrum.
No, you're not wrong. You know?
Yeah.
I don't, when you think about your resume and all the films you've made, which ones do you think changed the most in the editing room in ways you didn't expect?
I think the most malleable films in post that I kind of feel like were crafted. I mean, Hitman's in the top 10% of that, just because it got a little, we could shapeshift it a little bit. But probably Waking Life. That was never linear. Still isn't in my mind. I was moving stuff around kind of with a flow. That was fun. Sandra would scream at me. Like, we never argue, but she's like, no. I said, well, what if the whole thing, you know, so that's the only time, because it was pretty wide open. So anyway, it was such a trippy film, but that's about it. I don't think, you know, it's always a craft, you know, you're always crafting everything. You know, to me, it's a put down to the actors say, oh, I had to craft their performance in post. But I learned I've been doing it long enough. I went from analog to digital in the editing, and it was sure nice. If you're not in the middle of a big camera move and you're cutting, like, oh my God, once you got digital, I could use that little bit from take 7. I could use that little bit. That line is best. Where before, when you had to kind of take the whole reel, rewind it, put it up on the stand, get a new one out, get to that. It was like, you know what? Take 3 is really the best overall. But, you know, that line on take 7 is better. You know, you did it, but it's just natural human labor, laziness. You probably defaulted a little more into that. So I found it very refreshing in those situations to have all that material quickly available that you could, like digital editing, was the way your mind worked. It was great. I'd never been so thankful for
Sure.
Post-production got digital really fast.
It's literally what I just said about Fincher.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you couldn't do that with, back when you know.
You could, you just took 3 years to edit your movie. Like Kubrick would spend years editing because he thought that way. And it was, it just was very, very time consuming.
I also think that a lot of people don't realize how instrumental George Lucas was into digital editing, because he was thinking about that with, he really helped that
Francis
transition.
Coppola too. Yeah. It was like, hey, the video was always a tool to help you. Digital video editing. Yeah. Even before it was digital, it was video, because you could edit video quickly, like news footage type approach.
I'm also curious, with this film, what cameras did you use? And have you been using the same cameras on all your recent films?
No, it changes around a lot, the Alexa, the different Alexas. So I don't really obsess about that too much. So, whatever the latest one that kind of work, how some people stick with a camera. It's like, it changes so much. I think the big leap was just to start shooting digital anyway. I was kind of later to that than most, I think.
So I
work with Dick Pope, who's Deacon's partner, and he hadn't shot digitally and I hadn't either. It was Bernie 10 years ago. Dick was like, we were like the Alexa camera. He did some tests, I think, with Deacon's and said, this is starting to look pretty good. I think I could finally do it. But people have been shooting digital 10 years and I just didn't like the way it looked, especially night exteriors. I think that looks like crap. I'm not doing that. And so finally it was like, that's got the latitude. It's got the look. Yeah, let's try it. But even since then, I've shot on film. It really depends on the movie. To me, the choice is film or digital. But within the digital, I've been pretty much Alexa, but it's not exclusive.
I agree with you, though. The early days of digital, it looked like shit. But recently now, the cameras are incredible.
Yeah. No, I'm just like, whatever latest, greatest camera that gets you the look of your movie, I wouldn't get too precious about it.
I completely agree.
Right.
And also, some people have talked to me about like the lenses they use. Yeah. And now they'll take a newer camera, but use like 60s lenses.
Old lenses. Yeah. You got that option.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about what it's like in Texas now in the film community, if you don't mind, because Austin is obviously just a great town outside of the rest of Texas. Sorry, did I say that out loud? No, but I'm just...
That used to be a joke. The only thing wrong with Austin is surrounded by Texas. But I don't believe that anymore. If you really look at politically, if we're talking, all those cities, all the big cities are blue cities. It's just still a red state. Barely.
I don't want to open that door.
Yeah.
I'll leave it alone.
Texas is trying.
Yeah, I wanted to try harder.
Where it goes, we do too. But, we're there, front line, staying there trying to make it better. We're impeaching our attorney general as we speak.
Which by the way, I never thought that was ever going to happen.
Me either. It's an encouraging sign that.
Well, he really.
How bad do you have to be?
That's exactly my point.
But is there a line anywhere in the world?
So listen, I'm going to stop there, and I'm just going to say I really mean it when I say congrats on Hitman.
Oh, thank you.
And I really encourage everyone out there when it eventually comes out to seek the film out. And I really thank you for coming in today. It's always a pleasure.
Oh, always great talking with you. Thanks for checking out the movie.
Oh, for sure.
Your thoughts. So.